Hello again, I'm Marty, back with Warehouse and Operations as a Career. Today, Joe and I would like to talk about a few of the warehouse tools and equipment that may or may not have specific regulatory or training per se attached to them, but can present dangers of injury to us and others. Joe, how you been doing, sir?
Just fine. How about yourself, sir?
Doing great, traveling a bit and getting to meet new people, two of my favorite things to do. Last week I mentioned two things while speaking about the use of hand trucks, which were dock plates and wheel chocks. Joe reached out to me and we ended up talking a bit about several different safety opportunities in most warehouse environments, so we decided to speak about a few of them today. Joe, I'm still seeing a lot of the spring lever action dock plates in my travels. You know, where you walk towards the middle of them and there's that large recessed ring attached to a chain that you yank on, which releases a spring trigger and the dock plate pops up. The trailer lip kind of shoots out or extends and you have to hurry up towards the top so our weight will make it drop onto the trailer where another spring trigger locks it in place, I suppose. Of course, I see a lot of automatic and manual hydraulic systems out there as well, and I'm not sure we as warehousemen think enough about the dangers a dock plate can present to us.
I think you're right, Marty. Part of that is because we take, so much for granted on a daily basis. But another thing that we have to be aware of is the word serviceable. Just because they're an older style doesn't necessarily mean they're not effective today, or couldn't, provide the same use that we'd get out of something more modern because it has motors or power or something to it.
There's several things in the warehouse, overhead cranes, ladders, trash compactors, and I've got a lot of thoughts about trash compactors or really anything hydraulic.
Compressed air compressors, those are one of the pretty big ones with me. Have you ever heard of being able to shoot air into your skin?
Yeah, matter of fact, I've read quite a bit of, different safety sheets on that. I guess that's a real concern if you're working around compressed air.
That's right. And compressed air is available for, many different tasks, which kind of puts it on the take for granted list. If you work at a place where you use compressed air, say, to clean with, or, just to hose kind of stuff off, well, then you get real used to using it for just that reason, and you forget about the dangers that it poses. If you're in a maintenance shop somewhere, then I think those guys are probably a little more aware of some of those dangers, because you don't want to blow compressed air, say, into a pile of metal shavings near some of the equipment that's producing those. So I think they're a little more aware. 30 psi is the magic number. That's the number that OSHA has set as the standard for safety with compressed air on your person, on your skin. So if you're using anything that's over 30 psi, you're going to get Uncle Sam involved with your health, because that's the magic number to where it's going to shoot particles or some kind of foreign matter through your skin. When I first heard that, I thought it was kind of crazy. It almost seemed ridiculous. Like, how are you going to shoot air through your skin?
That's so true. And there's so many pneumatic things or air-powered things out there. Remember back in the day for heavy dock plates where there was heavy equipment being used? They had pneumatic lifting systems for dock plates back then, didn't they?
Oh, yeah. They've had everything. I mean, technology runs the gamut of everyone's ideas, and it's incredible what we learn through trial and error.
Yeah, exactly. And dock plates, that's one of those things you just really don't think about. And unfortunately, I've witnessed too many near misses and injuries with them. In really every instance, the situation could have been avoided if a little focus and observation of the surroundings had really been applied. I once saw a gentleman's finger get hung up in the pull chain. The pull ring had been, I think it actually been kind of squeezed together, and he just wrapped the chain around a couple of his fingers and gave it a hard yank. Well, he pulled it, the dock plate trigger released, but his finger didn't come loose from the chain, and the dock plate came on up, and his finger got cut pretty bad as his finger were pulled down that recess hole. Another time, a unloader or lumper jumped up inside the trailer. He was going to assist with the trailer lip, to raise it as his friend pulled the chain and ran up the dock plate, forcing it down into position. Well, it truly came down all right, right on the guy in the trailer's toes. Thank goodness he was wearing steel-toe boots that day. And by the way, they weren't required at the time at that facility, but he was sure thankful he had them on that day.
Yeah, good thing some PPE is required some places, and it's always a good idea to have that extra protection when it's not. Just because there's no license or certificate to be awarded, the need for on-the-job training with, those types of equipment and tools is very much needed. A lot of accidents can be prevented from listening and doing our jobs correctly. The lack of attention to detail sometimes costs us dearly, especially when working with tools. By using our gear incorrectly or negligently or in a horse playing kind of a way, or, just misreading our equipment because we're not totally focused, causes us to not be in full control of the task at hand or what we're doing or, what we actually have our hands on, and leaves us open to all kinds of dangerous scenarios and possibilities. And not only us, but, the people that are around us too.
Yeah, it seems to always be the simplest things that can cause those injuries or those minor injuries. Another thing that's so simple is wheel chocks. I see a lot of wheel chocks or tire blocks being used, or supposed to be being used in various yards. I myself knocked the trailer loose and I had it roll forward a bit with me upon entering it with a forklift once. I can't even describe that sensation. I had relied on another person to check the wheel chocks, and of course that was the last time I ever relied on anyone else. Now I always check them myself going forward from that day. I've actually seen trailers push forward enough to break the landing gear up front, and the trailers nose land right to the ground. I really like the newer locking mechanisms we're seeing today, where they actually lock to the ICC bumper of the trailer, attaching it to the dock. And have you seen any of the newer locks that actually come up, out of the ground in front of the tires, up from the asphalt or concrete? I've heard about them, but I haven't seen one in operation yet.
Yeah, those are actually pretty cool devices. All it is a modern take on, I don't know if you remember the rolling like bar wheels that would kind of one in front of the tire and one behind the tire, and you back up with them in place till you got to the front and it released your truck.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Only this is a little more modern.
Yeah, very cool. And I guess I'd explain a little bit. ICC bumper, wasn't that a rule back in that was imposed by the Interstate Commerce Commission back in like 59 or so?
Yeah, that's right, Marty. It was an attempt at kind of lowering some of the fatalities and accidents that were happening out on the highway. Those trucks have to be a certain height to back up to the dock correctly. It was when they were first standardizing that height. So when you had a truck back up, of course you wanted the dock workers to be able to access it. The problem is, at that time you had all the little roadsters and hot rod type cars that when colliding with these on the interstate were going under. They also used this ICC bumper as the basis for dock restraints to keep the pushing the trailer forward from happening.
Yeah, and I know those trailer locks, man. Those are really important when you're entering a trailer. You don't want that. You don't want that thing bumping forward on you at all. Another danger that's always kind of scared me, and I've always checked them out thoroughly before operating them, are things under hydraulic pressure, like trash compactors and balers. Like the things we stack cardboard and shrink wrap in, which compresses it really super tight, and we guide those long wires through it, tying it off, producing a large and generally heavy bale. I always check those door latches and safety guides, making sure everything is right before I work with them. I can just imagine one popping open. I've never seen or heard about one popping open, but I don't want to be standing in the wrong place if it did.
I know it's probably pretty frightening. My background was in maintenance and the military and that type of thing. So one of the things that I was always kind of aware of was potential energies. You have to lock out and tag out against any potential energies that are there to keep yourself safe too. And no one would really think that one of those bales has enough potential energy to really do some harm to you if it comes open. The guy that's putting those bales on there is sending that stuff to the guy that takes those bales off to process that cardboard. So it is actually somebody's job somewhere to make sure that it's safely cut open and disposed of. And we don't really think about those things. And I'm sure that the person doing that is using a piece of equipment that, removes him from that hazard.
True, it's all those simple little things, that sometimes we just don't think about. And I'm burying some of my ridiculous fears, but I need to add dock doors, to that list. Those roll-up doors, man, you have to show them things some respect. I actually witnessed a driver raise one day. Well, actually, he kind of slammed it or shoved it up real hard. 2 panels of the 5 comprising the door came loose off the tracks and hit him in the back of the head. It really injured him pretty bad. It cut his skull, and he was out for quite a while. And those springs, too. I've seen them shoot all the way across the warehouse and go into the sheetrock wall. Even the coil kind can be dangerous. Those things are wound pretty tight.
They absolutely are. I had a horror story kind of like yours where I saw somebody too close to one that was, installed, brand new, and we had one of our maintenance guys gonna kind of go over there and fix it, let's say. And long story short, we had somebody standing too close to it, and when it went up, managed to catch his shirt and rip his shirt right off him. So definitely a power to be respected is anything with a motor. One of the other things that I've seen, Marty, was during the night shift. On slow nights, I knew of a warehouse that would have the forklift operators or people that wanted to get a little overtime come on in, and they do other things there, including cleaning the warehouse, cleaning the break room, maybe cleaning some of the offices in the front. One day when I went in to speak to the warehouse manager, I noticed a large hole in the break room wall that was on the way to his office. When I asked him about it, I was told to have a new forklift guy at night that wanted to use the floor buffer, and well, it got away from him. The forklift driver just didn't anticipate the power that a floor buffer had.
The stories like that, and there's so many small things like that. There's just a lot of difference between a forklift and one of those scrubber or buffer machines. These kind of things, of course, us as new boots are shown how to operate them, but there's probably not really any formal training or written processes at some facilities. Common sense and focus really has to be applied with our positions. As with anything that we don't understand, it's our responsibility to ask questions, kind of follow directions, and contribute to the strong safety culture at our company. We talk about pit training or powered industrial truck training or 29 CFR 1910.178 quite a bit, which applies to specific tools or equipment that's used in our facilities. And those are regulated rules, laws actually. I think just that regulation alone has really helped raise awareness to us on the floor. Helps with our own individual safety culture across the board, don't you think?
I do. We should even think of them as warehouse rules. It should be more like warehouse etiquette. When you go to a nice restaurant, you know how you're expected to behave. There's a certain way to go about being in that place. If you go to your grandma's house or your mother's house, then you definitely know you better behave while you're there. So being in an industrial setting should be more reason to keep safe and pay attention to your surroundings when the whole idea is to be safe, and that's where there's the danger.
Exactly. So what are a few of your personal fears or things that you yourself approach with caution? I think it's a little different for each of us.
I don't know if it goes back to my military days, but one of mine definitely has to be blind corners and approaching them. Whether I'm on foot or if I'm on some kind of powered industrial truck, I always use the most cautious approach when heading to one. And it's more of caution in the sense that I don't see myself harming someone. I see someone else potentially harming me. When you have that type of danger and it's in, your hands to keep yourself safe, tend to do that instead. I trust me with myself a lot more than someone that's not checking a blind corner. So these are the types of things I look at when I'm out at a facility or doing some type of audit or whatever, just whenever I'm in a warehouse. It draws my concern. So, whenever I go visit any place, one of the things that I do is find the dangerous corners there and watch how people are coming through it. And the minute someone comes through there and doesn't honk or blow their horn, hey, kind of bring it to their attention. And it's kind of a pet peeve.
Oh, and that's a very good point, too. And kind of sets up my next question. Give us 3 things or thoughts you as a safety manager and certified health and safety officer you look for or would like to see us as employees new to the industry types recognize or work harder on.
I would say the first would be housekeeping and clean as you go. One thing that I also have seen with the new workforce that's coming aboard is no one wants to clean. And, Marty, I'm telling you, my background has been in the military. It has been in maintenance, working with tools, and I have never, ever worked at a place where I was not required to clean up my workspace. It helps you get done quicker because your job is never done until your work area is clean. That's a basic rule everywhere. So instead of putting off the inevitable because you just don't like it, if you clean as you go and you practice better housekeeping, it'll, finish the job a lot quicker. The second thing's probably attention to detail. No rushing, and sloppy work. It's about being safe and knowing that adding your name to your work means something. This creates a safety work culture in itself because it's along the lines of doing things correctly. So if you're doing your job correctly, then you're bound to be safe while you're doing it because it's part of the requirement. And correctly will work with high-speed operations, by the way. We have industry Fortune 500 companies that prove this every day. So just because you have a high speed on your feet, run around operations type job like me and you have always had, Marty, doesn't mean you can't be upbeat and quick about being safe as well. I would probably say my final one would just be if I could convince the world to do a final review and check of their work before turning anything in. If you make sure your work is what it needs to be and what is expected, then everything should go off without a hitch and you've done your job safely. Kind of makes sense?
It does, and those are very good points. Housekeeping is just a part of, I think every job there is, whether you're an accountant or whatever you are, you've got to clean things up, when you're finished with the task. And attention to detail, I loved, that you added putting our names on it, because once we stamp our names on it, it's a reflection of the job that we did. Those are very good points. We all have an objective or task, which is our job. It's pretty specific. We're trained on it, and we know how to do it, but I think it's important we realize how many other things we touch on or have a part of. I guess to summarize, we could say it's so important just really to stay focused, watch our surroundings, and pay attention to what we're doing at all times. One of the first things we'll learn, and I guess it's a rule in every warehouse, building, or facility, is no horseplay. No playing around with our peers, our co-workers, or any type of equipment. Maybe that's the first safety rule that I ever learned, actually. You brought up some great points, Joe, and as always, we here at WAOC enjoyed our discussion today and appreciate you taking time to speak with us. I'd like to thank you for listening each week, too. It was great that you reached out to us to expand on last week's thoughts, and all the points brought up today have been very, very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Marty. I'm glad to be here. I also want to remind your listeners if there's any specific questions that they have to go ahead and send them in to you.
Outstanding. And that email address is host@warehouseandoperationsasacareer.com. And yeah, we'd love to hear any ideas or questions, and I'll certainly grab Joe and we'll get some answers to them.
Marty, what we stress on the job site is what we used to stress in the Army. In fact, there we had sort of a slogan that, at any time you'd hear one of the senior guys yell out, and it was stay alert, and everyone would respond with stay alive. And that very much applies in today's workplace as well. Let's pass it on to our listeners and hope that they remember to do just that. We all have to stay alert so that we can stay alive.
That's simply discipline, and I'd agree with that. Rules are probably there because something came up which created them, very possibly from a near miss being reported, and we're all better off when the workplace safety rules are followed. I really like your Stay Alert, Stay Alive slogan. And us here at WAOC and all of our guests really appreciate each of you, our listeners, checking in with us each week. Keep those questions and emails coming in. Participation and your growth within the industry is what makes this all worthwhile. Well, that and maybe we just all love talking about operations and safety too. Remember to use some key words with your supervisors. Talk about near-miss reporting. Ask to lead your daily stretches before shift. Maybe ask about any company procedures. Possibly bring up something from the general maintenance practices sheet. We want to get noticed by our supervisor and let them know we're interested in the team, the company, and our advancements. And most importantly, think safety. Safety is us as individuals' responsibility. Our companies, our co-workers, families, and children rely on us every day. Let's not let them down and protect them as well. Have a great week and be safe out there.